I was folding towels in my living room when my phone rang. It was 2:15 on a Thursday afternoon in October, and I remember thinking how strange it was to see Noah's name on the screen during school hours. My son never called from work. Never. He taught 7th grade English at West Junior High, and during the day, his phone stayed in his desk drawer like it was glued there. So when I saw his name, my stomach did this little flip. I set down the towel I was holding and answered. What I heard on the other end made my hands go cold. It was crying. Not the kind of crying you do when you stub your toe or get frustrated. This was the sound of someone breaking apart. Deep, choking sobs that seemed to be pulled from somewhere so far down I could barely recognize my own son's voice underneath them. I said his name 3 times before he could even speak. When he finally did, the words came out in pieces. Mom, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. I need to tell you today, or I swear to God, I am going to do something I cannot take back. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I asked him what was wrong. I asked him where he was. I asked if he was safe. But he just kept crying. And underneath the crying, I could hear something else. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. The kind that makes your voice shake even when you are trying to hold it together. Then he asked me a question that stopped my whole world. Mom, do you love me more than you love him? I did not understand. I said, what? And he said it again, slower this time, like every word was costing him something. Do you love me more than you love Gregory? Gregory, my husband. The man I married 12 years ago after being widowed for 6 years. The man who brought me coffee every morning and fixed the porch railing without being asked. The man everyone in our church called dependable. The man my son had just asked me to choose between. I did not even think. I just said yes. Yes, Noah, of course I love you more. You are my son. You will always come first. There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing, trying to steady himself. Then he said, okay. Then I need you to do something for me. And you cannot tell him. You cannot call him. You cannot warn him. You just have to trust me. He told me to go home. He told me to go into the bedroom, Gregory's and mine. He told me to look under the bed, under Gregory's side of the bed. And he said, Mom, when you see what is there, you are going to understand why I have been so scared, why I cannot be alone with him anymore, why I have been lying to you for months. Then he hung up. I stood there in my living room with the phone still against my ear and the dial tone buzzing and my mind trying to catch up with what had just happened. My son, my 26-year-old son who had his life together, who had a teaching job and an apartment and a girlfriend he talked about marrying. That son had just called me in the middle of the day, sobbing and begging me to look under my husband's bed. And I did not know why, but I knew I was going to do it. Before I go any further, I need to take a breath here. And I want to ask you something. Where are you right now? What city are you in? Is it late where you are, or is it the middle of the day? Drop it in the comments because I like knowing who is listening to this old woman's story. And if you are still with me, if something about this is pulling at you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already because there is a new story here every single day. Stories like this one, stories that need to be told. Now let me keep going. My name is Linda Carver. I am 74 years old, and I have lived in Boise, Idaho my whole life. I was born here in 1950. My parents ran a small hardware store on the north side of town, and I grew up knowing every neighbor by name. I married my first husband, David, when I was 22. We had Noah 2 years later. David was a good man, a quiet man. He worked for the Parks Department and came home every night smelling like cut grass and sunshine. We were not rich, but we were happy. When Noah was 16, David had a heart attack while mowing the lawn at Settlers Park. He was 53 years old. I became a widow at 48. For 6 years after that, it was just Noah and me. He finished high school, went to Boise State, got his teaching degree. I worked part-time at the library and part-time at the church office, and we got by. I did not think I would ever marry again. Did not want to. I had loved once and lost once, and that felt like enough. Then I met Gregory Hale at a church potluck in 2012. He was new to the congregation, 58 years old, a widower himself. His wife had died of cancer 3 years before, and he had moved to Boise from Spokane to be closer to his sister. He was soft-spoken, polite. He brought homemade rolls to the potluck, and everyone raved about them. He asked if he could sit next to me, and we talked for 2 hours. He was careful with me, gentle. He did not rush anything. We dated for a year before he proposed. Noah was 20 at the time and living in his own apartment near campus. When I told him Gregory and I were getting married, he smiled and said he was happy for me. He said it was good that I would not be alone anymore. He hugged Gregory and welcomed him into the family. We got married in a small ceremony at the church. Gregory moved into my house, the house I had shared with David, and we built a quiet life together. Routines, morning coffee on the porch, Wednesday night Bible study, Saturday errands, Sunday dinners with Noah when he had time. It was steady, comfortable. I thought I had been given a second chance at love, and I was grateful for it. Gregory was good to me. He never raised his voice. He remembered my birthday. He held my hand during movies. He got along with everyone. My friends adored him. The people at church adored him. He volunteered with the youth group. He helped organize the annual Christmas bazaar. He was dependable. Everyone said so. Noah seemed fine with it all. He came over for dinners. He was polite. He called Gregory by his first name, never Dad, but that felt natural. They were not close, but they were not distant either. Gregory asked about Noah's teaching job, and Noah answered. They watched football together on Thanksgiving. It all seemed normal. I look back now and I realize I was not paying attention. I was so relieved to not be alone, so grateful for companionship. I did not see what was happening right in front of me. I did not notice the small changes in Noah, the way he stopped staying for dessert, the way he started making excuses not to come over, the way his smile got thinner. I told myself he was busy, he was young, he had his own life. Of course he did not want to spend every weekend with his mom and stepdad. That was normal, healthy even. But it was not normal, and I should have seen that. I should have asked more questions. I should have noticed the way Noah looked at Gregory when he thought no one was watching. I should have noticed the tension in his shoulders when Gregory walked into a room. I should have noticed that my son, who used to tell me everything, had started keeping secrets. But I did not notice, because I did not want to. The drive home from my house to my house took 11 minutes. I know because I watched every single second tick by on the dashboard clock. I did not call Gregory. I did not text him. He was at work anyway. He managed a small accounting firm downtown, and he would not be home until 5:30. It was only 2:30. I had time. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a minute with the engine off. The house looked the same as it always did. White siding, blue shutters, the porch Gregory had repaired last spring, the flower beds I had planted with petunias. Everything normal, everything safe. I went inside. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that usually feels peaceful. Today it felt like holding my breath. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom. The door was open. The bed was made. Gregory always made the bed. Hospital corners, pillows arranged just so, everything in its place. I stood at the foot of the bed and looked at it. Our bed. Where I slept every night next to a man I trusted. Where I woke up every morning to the smell of coffee he made without being asked. I thought about all the nights we had spent there, all the ordinary, unremarkable nights, all the mornings, all the years. Then I walked around to his side, the left side, and I got down on my knees. The space under the bed was not empty. I knew it would not be. Gregory kept things under there, boxes of old tax documents, seasonal clothes. I had seen them before, but Noah had said to look. So I pulled out the first box. Tax returns from 2015. Nothing unusual. I pushed it aside and reached for the next one. More papers, bank statements. I kept going. And then my hand hit something that did not feel like cardboard. It was a plastic storage bin, gray, with a lid that snapped on. I had never seen it before. I pulled it out and set it on the floor in front of me. My hands were shaking. I did not know why yet, but my body knew. My body was screaming at me to stop, to put it back, to walk away. But I could still hear Noah's voice. I could still hear him crying. So I opened it. Inside were folders, manila folders, the kind you use for important documents. There were 6 of them, each one labeled with a name. I did not recognize the names. They were boys' names, first names only. Kyle, Aaron, Ben, Jordan, Tyler, Ethan. I opened the first folder. Inside were photographs, printed photographs, not the kind you take with your phone. These were printed on photo paper, high quality, deliberate, and they were of a boy, maybe 11 or 12 years old, blonde hair, braces, wearing a soccer uniform. In some of the pictures he was smiling. In others he was not. In others his face was turned away from the camera. And in some of the pictures he was not wearing the uniform anymore. I closed the folder. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I opened the next one. Different boy, different pictures, same sick, deliberate composition, same wrongness. I did not open the rest. I could not. I sat there on the floor of my bedroom with 6 folders spread out in front of me and my whole world collapsing. I did not scream. I did not cry. I just sat there because I could not make sense of it. This man I had shared a bed with for 12 years, this man who brought me coffee and fixed the porch and volunteered with the youth group. This man was not who I thought he was. He was not even close. And then I thought about Noah, about the phone call, about the fear in his voice, about the question he had asked me. And I understood. Noah had known. Somehow, Noah had known. And he had been carrying this alone. And I had not seen it. I do not know how long I sat there. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been an hour. Time did not make sense anymore. But eventually, I stood up. I put the folders back in the bin. I put the bin back under the bed. I pushed the other boxes back into place. I made it look like I had never been there. Then I went into the kitchen and I called Noah. He answered on the first ring. "Mom?" I said. I saw it. There was a long silence. Then he said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry you had to see that. I did not know how else to tell you." I asked him how he knew, how he found it. And he told me. 3 months ago, Noah had come over for Sunday dinner. I had gone to the store to pick up something I forgot, and Gregory and Noah were alone in the house. Gregory's phone rang. He was in the bathroom, so Noah answered it. It was someone from the youth group, a parent, asking about a camping trip. Noah said he would have Gregory call back. But when Gregory came out of the bathroom and Noah told him about the call, Gregory's whole face changed. He got very quiet, very still, and he asked Noah if he had touched anything else, if he had looked at anything. Noah said no. But the way Gregory looked at him made Noah feel like he had done something wrong. That night Noah could not stop thinking about it, about the look on Gregory's face, about the way his voice had gone flat and careful. So the next time he came over, when I was in the garden and Gregory was watching television, Noah went into our bedroom. And he looked. He found the bin. He opened it. He saw what was inside. And he said he almost threw up right there on the floor. He did not know what to do. He was terrified. He wanted to tell me, but he was afraid I would not believe him. Afraid I would choose Gregory. Afraid it would destroy me. So he kept it to himself. He stopped coming over as much. He made excuses. He started having panic attacks. He could not sleep. He could not eat. He said he felt like he was drowning and there was no one to pull him out. Until today. Until he broke. I told him I believed him. I told him I was sorry. I told him he should have told me sooner, but I understood why he did not. I told him I loved him, and then I told him to stay where he was. Do not come home. Do not go anywhere. Just stay at the school. I would handle this. I hung up, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I stared at the wall. My mind was moving so fast and so slow at the same time. I thought about calling the police, but I did not know what to say. I thought about confronting Gregory, but I did not know if I could look at him without my hands shaking. I thought about running, just getting in my car and driving and never coming back. But I did not do any of those things. Because there was something else I needed to know first. Something Noah had said that I could not stop thinking about. He said he was scared to be alone with Gregory. Not uncomfortable. Scared. And I needed to know why. Gregory came home at 5:30 like he always did. I heard his car in the driveway. I heard the front door open. I heard him call out, "Honey, I am home." I was sitting in the living room. I did not answer. He walked in and saw me, and his face did this thing, this flicker, like he knew, like he could see it on me. He said, "Are you okay? You look pale." I said, "We need to talk." He sat down across from me, his hands folded in his lap, his face calm, too calm. And I realized he was already preparing, already building whatever story he was going to tell. I said, "Noah called me today. He was very upset." Gregory nodded slowly. He said, "I know things have been hard for him lately. He has been stressed. I have been worried about him." I said, "He told me to look under the bed." And that is when Gregory's face changed. I need to stop here for just a moment because even now, all these years later, my chest gets tight when I think about the look on his face. It was not shock. It was not confusion. It was calculation. I watched him decide, right there in real time, what his next move would be, and that told me everything. Before I keep going, I want to ask you something. Are you still with me? If you are, tell me where you are watching from. What city? What state? And what time is it there? Is it late? Is it the middle of the night and you cannot sleep? I understand that more than you know. If this story is hitting somewhere deep, do me a favor and leave a like, and subscribe if you have not yet, because there is a new story here every single day. Stories that need to be heard. Now, let me tell you what happened next. Gregory sat very still. His hands were still folded, but I could see his jaw working. He said, "Linda, I do not know what Noah thinks he saw, but I can explain." I said, "Explain what?" He said, "Explain whatever has him so upset. He has been acting strange lately. Distant. I think he might be struggling with some things and projecting them onto me." Projecting. That was the word he used. Like my son was the problem. Like my son was making things up. And I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been soft for 12 years suddenly turned to stone. I said, "I saw the bin. I saw the folders. I saw the pictures." His face went completely blank, and then he smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, sad smile, like I was a child who had misunderstood something. He said, "Those are from my work with the youth group. We take pictures at events, for the church directory, for parents. It is all completely innocent." I said, "Those boys were not dressed." He did not even flinch. He said, "I do not know what you think you saw, Linda, but you are mistaken. And I think Noah has put some very dangerous ideas in your head. Ideas that could ruin my reputation, ruin our marriage, ruin everything." He stood up. He walked over to me. He put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, "I love you. You know that. And I would never do anything to hurt you or anyone else. But if you keep listening to Noah, if you keep believing these lies, you are going to destroy this family." I looked up at him. This man I had trusted. This man I had let into my life, into my home, into my bed. And I said, "Get your hand off me." He pulled his hand back like I had burned him. And for the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger. real anger. I said, "I want you to leave. Pack a bag and leave. Tonight." He said, "You are not thinking clearly. You are upset. Let us talk about this tomorrow when you have calmed down." I said, "I am not calming down. I am not talking tomorrow. I want you out of this house right now." He stared at me for a long time. Then he said, "Fine. If that is what you want. But when you realize you made a mistake, when you realize Noah has been lying to you, do not come crying to me." He went into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening. I heard the closet door. I sat on the couch and I did not move. My whole body was shaking, but I did not let him see it. I would not give him that. 20 minutes later, he walked out with a suitcase. He did not say goodbye. He just looked at me one more time with this expression I will never forget. It was not sadness. It was not regret. It was contempt, like I was the one who had done something wrong. The door closed behind him. I heard his car start. I heard him drive away. And then I was alone. I sat there for a long time. The house was so quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I could hear my own breathing. And I thought, what do I do now? I called Noah. I told him Gregory was gone. I told him he could come over if he wanted. He said he would be there in 20 minutes. When he arrived, I opened the door and he just stood there looking at me. His eyes were red. His face was pale. He said, "Mom, I am so sorry." I pulled him inside and I held him. I had not held my son like that since he was a teenager, since his dad died. He was taller than me now, broader. But in that moment, he felt small, fragile. And I realized he had been carrying this weight for months, alone, terrified. And I had not seen it. I said, "You have nothing to be sorry for. You did the right thing. You told me the truth. And I believe you." He started crying again, not the broken crying from the phone. This was relief, like he had been holding his breath for so long and finally he could breathe. We sat on the couch. I made him tea, and he told me everything. He told me about the phone call, about the way Gregory had looked at him, about going back and searching the room. He told me he had nightmares about what he saw. He told me he tried to tell his girlfriend, but he could not find the words. He told me he thought about going to the police, but he was afraid they would not believe him, afraid they would think he was trying to cause trouble, afraid Gregory would find a way to turn it around. He told me that every time he came to the house, he felt sick, that he could not look at Gregory without seeing those pictures, that he started avoiding family dinners because he could not sit at the table with him, that he felt like he was going crazy because no one else seemed to see it. No one else seemed to notice that something was wrong. And then he said something that broke my heart. He said, "Mom, I thought you loved him more than you loved me." I said, "Why would you think that?" He said, "Because you were so happy. And I did not want to take that away from you. I did not want to be the reason you were alone again." I held his face in my hands and I said, "You listen to me. You are my son. You will always be my son. And I will always choose you. Always. I do not care if it makes me alone. I do not care if it ruins my life. You are worth more to me than anything. Do you understand that?" He nodded, but I could see he did not quite believe me yet. Not fully. And I knew it would take time. Time and proof. Time and action. Words were not enough anymore. I said, "We are going to fix this. I do not know how yet. But we are going to make sure he cannot hurt anyone else. I promise you that." Noah stayed with me that night. He slept in his old room, the room he grew up in, the room that still had his high school trophies on the shelf and his posters on the wall. I did not sleep. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, and I thought about everything I had missed, everything I had ignored, everything I had chosen not to see. I thought about the youth group, about all those boys, about how Gregory had volunteered, about how everyone trusted him, about how he had access. I thought about the camping trips, the lock-ins, the after-school events, all the times Gregory had been alone with children. And I felt sick. The next morning I called the police. I told them I needed to report something. They asked me what. I said I found something in my home, something involving children. They told me to come to the station. Noah went with me. We sat in a small room with a detective named Martin Shaw. He was maybe 50, gray hair, kind eyes. He asked us to tell him what happened. So we did. I told him about the bin, about the folders, about the pictures. Noah told him about finding it, about the months of fear, about not knowing what to do. Detective Shaw listened. He took notes. He asked questions. Where was the bin now? Was it still in the house? Had anyone touched it besides me and Noah? Did Gregory know we had found it? I answered everything. I told him Gregory had moved out. I told him I did not know where he was staying. I told him I had not touched the bin again after I put it back. Detective Shaw said they would need to get a warrant. They would need to search the house. They would need to seize the evidence, and they would need to talk to Gregory. He said, "I want to be very clear with you, Mrs. Carver. This is going to be difficult. This is going to take time, and there are no guarantees about what happens next." I said, "I understand, but I need you to do something. I need you to find out who those boys are. I need you to make sure they are safe." He said, "We will do everything we can." We left the station and went back to my house. 2 hours later, there were police cars in my driveway, officers in my bedroom, photographers taking pictures, evidence bags being filled. My home, the place I had felt safe, was now a crime scene. They took the bin. They took Gregory's computer. They took boxes of papers. They were there for 4 hours. And when they left, the house felt empty, violated, like something had been taken that I could not get back. That night, Noah stayed with me again. We ordered pizza. We did not talk much. We just sat together. And I thought about how quickly a life can fall apart, how one phone call can change everything, how the person you think you know can be a stranger. The next day, Gregory called. I did not answer. He called again and again. He left voicemails. The first one was calm. He said we needed to talk. He said this was all a misunderstanding. He said he loved me. The second voicemail was less calm. He said I was making a huge mistake. He said I was believing lies. He said I was going to regret this. The third voicemail was angry. He said I had no right to let the police into his home. He said I had no right to go through his things. He said I was going to pay for this. I saved every voicemail. I did not delete a single one because I knew they might matter later. 2 days after I went to the police, Detective Shaw called me. He said they had identified some of the boys in the photographs. He said they were interviewing families. He said it was an ongoing investigation and he could not tell me much. But he said, "Mrs. Carver, you did the right thing. You may have saved lives. I did not feel like I had saved anyone. I felt like I had failed to see, failed to protect, failed to ask the right questions years ago when it might have mattered. But I also knew I could not stay in that place. I could not stay in guilt and regret, because there was still work to do. There were still questions that needed answers, and there was still my son who needed to know I was not going to give up. Noah moved back in with me temporarily. He said he did not want me to be alone. I think he did not want to be alone either. We were both afraid of what might come next, afraid of what Gregory might do, afraid of what the investigation might find. A week went by, then 2. The police did not tell me much. They said the case was building. They said they were gathering evidence. They said it would take time. Meanwhile, Gregory hired a lawyer, a good one, expensive, the kind that makes headlines. The lawyer sent me a letter. It said I was making false accusations. It said I was defaming my husband. It said if I did not retract my statements, I would be sued for everything I had. I took the letter to Detective Shaw. He read it. He handed it back to me. He said, "Do not respond. Do not engage. Let us handle this." I said, "He is threatening me." He said, "He is scared. Scared people lash out. But we have the evidence, and the evidence does not lie." I wanted to believe him. But I also knew how these things worked. I knew how lawyers could twist things, how they could make victims look like liars, how they could make monsters look like saints. And I knew Gregory was not going to go quietly. The church called me. The pastor, a man I had known for 30 years, he said he heard about what was happening. He said he wanted to talk. So I went. He sat across from me in his office, and he said, "Linda, I need you to understand something. Gregory has been a valued member of this church for 12 years. He has done so much good. He has helped so many families. And these accusations, they are very serious, very damaging. Are you absolutely certain about what you saw?" I looked at him. This man who had married me and Gregory. This man who had baptized children Gregory had access to. And I said, "Yes, I am certain." He said, "But you understand, without proof, this could destroy him. It could destroy the church. It could destroy families." I said, "I have proof. The police have proof. And if you care more about protecting the church than protecting children, then I do not know what to say to you." He did not like that. He said, "I am trying to help you. I am trying to help everyone involved. But you need to think very carefully about what you are doing, about the consequences." I stood up. I said, "I have thought about it, and I am doing what I should have done a long time ago. I am protecting my son, and every other child who might be in danger." I walked out. I did not go back to that church, not ever. Word spread fast in a town like Boise. People talked, people whispered. Some people believed me, some people did not. I lost friends. People I had known for decades stopped calling, stopped coming by. They said I was destroying a good man over a misunderstanding. They said Noah must have been confused. They said I was bitter, jealous, losing my mind in my old age. But some people stood by me. My neighbor Ruth brought me meals. She said she believed me. She said she had always thought there was something off about Gregory, but she could not put her finger on it. Another woman from the church, Diane, called me and said her grandson had been in the youth group. She said she was going to talk to him, see if anything had ever happened. 3 days later, Diane called me back. She was crying. She said her grandson told her things. Things Gregory had done. Things he had said. Things he made the boy promise never to tell. She said she was going to the police. And that is when I realized this was bigger than I thought. Bigger than one bin under one bed. This was years. This was dozens of boys. This was a pattern. I still cannot believe I am saying this out loud. For so long I kept it locked inside. But if you are still here, still listening, I want to thank you. That means the world to me. Where are you watching from tonight? Or is it morning where you are? Tell me in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they are not crazy, that their gut feeling is right, please share this with them. Subscribe if you want to hear what happened next. Because what I am about to tell you changed everything. 2 weeks after I went to the police, Noah got a phone call. It was from a number he did not recognize. He almost did not answer, but something told him to pick up. It was a boy, 14 years old. His name was Kyle. He said he had heard about the investigation. He said he needed to talk to someone. He said Gregory had hurt him for 2 years, starting when he was 11. And he had never told anyone because Gregory said no one would believe him. Gregory said he would make sure Kyle's family lost everything. Gregory said he would hurt Kyle's little sister. Noah sat on the phone with that boy for an hour. He listened. He believed him. And then he called Detective Shaw. Kyle was not the only one. Over the next month, 6 more boys came forward. 6. All between the ages of 10 and 15. All from the youth group. All with stories that made my stomach turn. Gregory was arrested on a Tuesday morning in late November. I was not there. I did not want to be. But Noah told me about it later. He said Gregory did not fight, did not resist, just put his hands behind his back and let them cuff him, like he had been expecting it. He was charged with multiple counts: possession, production, distribution, abuse. The lawyer tried to get him out on bail. The judge said no. Too much evidence, too many victims, too much risk. Gregory Hale went to jail. And he stayed there. I thought I would feel relief. I thought I would feel vindicated. But mostly I just felt tired. So tired. Like I had been holding up the world, and suddenly someone told me I could put it down. Noah and I sat in the living room that night. We did not talk. We just sat. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. The weeks after Gregory's arrest felt like living in a fog. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt real. I would wake up in the morning, and for just a second, I would forget. Then it would all come crashing back. The pictures, the phone call, the look on Gregory's face when I told him to leave, the weight of knowing I had shared my life with a monster for 12 years. Noah was struggling too. He went back to work, but he said he could barely focus. He said his students would ask him questions, and he would just stare at them, his mind somewhere else entirely. His principal called him in one day and asked if he needed time off. Noah said no. He said he needed to keep moving, needed to keep busy, because if he stopped, if he let himself think too much, he did not know what would happen. I understood that. I felt the same way. So I kept going through the motions. I went to the grocery store, I did laundry, I watered the plants. I pretended I was fine when people asked, but at night, alone in my house, I was not fine, not even close. The trial was set for March, 4 months away. Detective Shaw said it would be a strong case. He said they had evidence, witnesses, testimony. He said Gregory's lawyer would try everything but the facts were the facts. But I also knew that trials could go wrong. I knew that juries could be swayed. I knew that men like Gregory, men who looked respectable and spoke well and had money for good lawyers, sometimes walked free. And that terrified me. In December, Gregory's lawyer filed a motion. He wanted the evidence suppressed. He claimed the search of my house was illegal. He claimed I had no right to let the police in. He claimed the warrant was based on unreliable testimony from a biased source, meaning me. Detective Shaw called me and told me not to worry. He said the warrant was solid. He said they had followed every rule, but I could hear something in his voice, a tension, a concern that maybe it was not as certain as he wanted me to believe. The hearing was scheduled for January 15th. I had to testify. I had to sit in a courtroom and explain why I went into my own bedroom and looked under my own bed. I had to explain why I called the police. I had to sit there while Gregory's lawyer tried to make me look like a vengeful ex-wife making things up. Noah wanted to come with me, but I told him no. I said I needed to do this alone. I said he had already done enough. He had already carried this burden for months. This part was mine. The courthouse in Boise was cold that day. January cold. The kind that gets into your bones and does not leave. I sat on a bench outside the courtroom waiting to be called. My hands were shaking. I kept folding them in my lap and then unfolding them. I could not sit still. Then I saw him. Gregory. He was walking down the hallway with his lawyer. He was wearing a suit, a nice one, navy blue. He had shaved. His hair was neat. He looked like the man I married, the man who brought me coffee, the man who fixed things around the house, the man everyone trusted. He saw me. Our eyes met. And he smiled. Not a big smile, just a small one. The kind that said he thought he was going to win. The kind that said he thought I was wasting my time. The kind that made my blood run cold. I looked away. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing me afraid. When they called me to the stand, I walked in with my head up. I put my hand on the Bible and I swore to tell the truth. And then I sat down and I looked at the judge and I told her everything. I told her about the phone call from Noah, about going home, about looking under the bed, about finding the bin, about the folders, about the pictures. I did not cry. I did not break. I just told the truth. Gregory's lawyer stood up. He was tall, expensive suit, slicked back hair. He smiled at me like we were old friends. Then he started asking questions. He asked if I had been angry at Gregory before I found the bin. I said no. He asked if Noah had ever expressed dislike for Gregory. I said Noah had been distant lately, but I did not know why until he called me. He asked if I had any proof that the bin belonged to Gregory. I said it was under his side of the bed in our shared bedroom. He asked if I had considered that someone else might have put it there. I said no. Who else would have access to our bedroom? He asked if I had been experiencing any memory issues, any confusion, any signs of cognitive decline. That was when I understood what he was doing. He was trying to paint me as a confused old woman who did not know what she saw, who could not be trusted, who was making things up. I looked right at him, and I said, I am 74 years old. I have lived in this town my whole life. I raised a son. I buried a husband. I worked for 40 years. I know exactly what I saw, and I know what I did. I protected my child. That is what mothers do. The lawyer did not like that. He tried a few more questions, but I did not budge. I answered every single one clearly, firmly, without hesitation. When I stepped down, I walked past Gregory. He was staring straight ahead, not looking at me, not looking at anyone. And I thought, good. Let him sit there and stew. The judge ruled 2 days later. The evidence would not be suppressed. The search was legal. The warrant was valid. The trial would proceed as scheduled. Detective Shaw called me with the news. He said, "You did great, Mrs. Carver. You held your ground." I said, "I just told the truth." He said, "Sometimes that is the hardest thing to do." I need to pause here because my hands are shaking just thinking about that courtroom, about sitting there, about looking at Gregory, about having to defend myself for doing the right thing. If you are still with me, if you are hearing this, I need to know I am not alone. Tell me where you are. What city? What state? What time is it where you are? Leave me a comment. And if this story is making you feel something, hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already, because there is a new story every single day. And maybe tomorrow's story will be exactly what someone you love needs to hear. Okay, let me keep going. January turned into February. The trial date was getting closer. The prosecutor, a woman named Angela Mendez, called me in for a meeting. She wanted to go over my testimony. She wanted to prepare me for what was coming. She said Gregory's defense was going to be that he was being framed, that someone planted the evidence, that the pictures were not his, that he was a victim of a conspiracy. I said, "Who would conspire against him?" She said, "That is the question we will make the jury ask, because the answer is no one. There is no conspiracy. There is just a man who hurt children and got caught." But she also warned me. She said, "Mrs. Carver, I need you to be ready for this. They are going to come after you. They are going to come after Noah. They are going to try to make this about anything except what Gregory did. And it is going to be ugly." I said, "I can handle ugly." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "I believe you." In the meantime, Noah was getting calls, threatening calls, people who said he was a liar, people who said he was trying to destroy a good man, people who said he should be ashamed of himself. One night, someone threw a brick through his apartment window. There was a note tied to it. It said, "Liars pay." Noah called the police. They filed a report. They said they would investigate. But we both knew it was probably someone from the church, someone who believed Gregory, someone who thought we were the enemy. Noah moved back in with me after that. He said it was not safe for him to be alone. I agreed. We installed new locks. We got a security system. We kept the lights on at night. I hated that it had come to this. I hated that we were the ones living in fear when Gregory was the one who had done wrong. But that is how it works sometimes. The victims get punished, the truth-tellers get attacked, and the guilty sit in their jail cells with their expensive lawyers and wait for their chance to lie. One night in late February, I could not sleep. I got up and went into the kitchen. I made tea. I sat at the table in the dark, and I thought about everything that had happened, everything that had led to this moment. I thought about the day I met Gregory, how charming he had seemed, how kind, how everyone loved him. I thought about our wedding, about the vows we took, about the life we built. And I wondered how I missed it, how I did not see, how I shared a bed with that man for 12 years and never knew what he was. But then I thought about something Detective Shaw had said. He said, people like Gregory are experts at hiding. They have to be. They build their whole lives around the lie. They choose their victims carefully. They groom entire communities. They make themselves indispensable, beloved, trusted, because that is how they get away with it. He said, "You did not miss anything, Mrs. Carver. He made sure you did not see." That is what they do. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe I was not a fool. But late at night, alone in my kitchen, it was hard. Noah found me there. He came out of his room and saw me sitting in the dark. He said, "Mom, you okay?" I said, "I do not know." He sat down across from me. He said, "I know what you are thinking. You are thinking you should have known. You are thinking you should have seen it." I said, "Should I not have?" He said, "Mom, I lived in this house when I was growing up. I came over for dinners after I moved out. I spent time with him, and I did not see it either. Not until I found those pictures. These people, they are good at what they do. They make you think they are normal, safe, good. That is the whole point." I said, "But you are my son. I should have protected you." He said, "You did protect me. When I called you, you believed me. You acted. You did not hesitate. You chose me. That is protecting me." I reached across the table and took his hand. I said, "I will always choose you." He said, "I know." We sat there in the dark for a long time, just holding hands, just being together. And I thought about how strong my son was, how brave, how he had carried this alone for so long, and how proud I was of him. March came. The trial started on March 3rd. The courtroom was packed. Media, families of the victims, people from the church, people from the community. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. I sat in the front row. Noah sat next to me. Detective Shaw sat behind us. Angela Mendez stood at the prosecutor's table, and Gregory sat at the defense table in his nice suit with his expensive lawyer looking calm and confident. The trial lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks of testimony, 2 weeks of evidence, 2 weeks of listening to what Gregory had done. The boys testified, 6 of them. They were so brave, so strong. They sat on that stand and they told their stories. They described what Gregory did, how he groomed them, how he threatened them, how he made them feel like it was their fault. I cried listening to them. I could not help it. These children, these babies. And Gregory had destroyed their innocence, their trust, their sense of safety. The defense tried to discredit them, tried to say they were lying, tried to say they were coached. But Angela Mendez was relentless. She presented evidence, photos, messages, timelines. She showed that every single boy's story corroborated the others. She showed that Gregory had a pattern, a method, a system. She presented the bin, the folders, the pictures. She had experts testify about what they showed, about how they were made, about what they meant. Gregory's lawyer tried to argue that the pictures could have been photoshopped, that they could have been planted, that there was no proof Gregory took them. But then Angela presented something we did not know existed. Gregory's computer, the one the police seized from the house. The forensic team had recovered deleted files, thousands of them, pictures, videos, chat logs, evidence that went back years, evidence that was time-stamped, evidence that was undeniable. The defense crumbled after that. They had no explanation, no rebuttal, no way to spin it. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was guilty. Guilty on every single count. Gregory did not react. He just sat there, staring straight ahead, like he could not believe it, like he thought until the very end he would get away with it. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Angela said he was looking at 40 years minimum, maybe more. She said he would die in prison. I should have felt relief. I should have felt vindicated. But mostly, I just felt empty, hollow, like I had been fighting for so long that I did not know what to do now that the fight was over. Noah hugged me outside the courtroom. He said, "We did it, Mom. We did it." I said, "You did it. You are the one who had the courage to speak up." He said, "No, we did it together." That night I went home, and I went into my bedroom. I stood at the foot of the bed Gregory and I had shared, and I knew I could not sleep there anymore. I could not even be in that room. The next day, I called a furniture store. I ordered a new bed, new sheets, new everything. I moved into the guest room, and I never went back into that bedroom again. 2 weeks later, we went back to court for sentencing. The judge asked if anyone wanted to speak. 3 of the boys did. They stood up and they told Gregory what he took from them, what he stole, what he destroyed. Then the judge looked at Gregory and she said, "You used your position of trust to harm the most vulnerable. You manipulated families. You manipulated a community. You manipulated your own wife. And you showed no remorse, no accountability, no humanity." She sentenced him to 65 years in prison. No possibility of parole. Gregory was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. He looked at me one last time as they took him away, and I looked right back. I did not smile. I did not cry. I just looked at him, and I hoped he understood that he had lost, that we had won, that the children he hurt were believed, protected, safe. When we left the courthouse that day, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful March day, the kind where you can feel spring coming. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The weeks after the sentencing were strange, quiet, like the world had been screaming for months and suddenly someone turned down the volume. I did not know what to do with the silence. Noah went back to his normal life, or as normal as it could be. He moved back into his apartment, got the window fixed, started sleeping through the night again. He said he still had nightmares sometimes, but they were getting less frequent. He said therapy was helping. I was proud of him for going to therapy, for taking care of himself, for not pretending he was fine when he was not. That took strength, real strength. I thought about going to therapy too. People suggested it. Detective Shaw, Angela Mendez, even Ruth, my neighbor. They all said it might help, that I had been through trauma, that I needed to process it, but I did not go, not right away. I told myself I did not need it. I told myself I was handling it. But the truth was, I was afraid of what I might feel if I let myself really feel it, afraid of what I might say if I let myself really talk about it, afraid of falling apart. So I kept busy instead. I cleaned the house. I reorganized closets. I donated Gregory's things. Every single piece of clothing, every book, every item that reminded me of him. I wanted it all gone. Ruth helped me. We spent 3 days going through everything, boxing it up, hauling it to donation centers. She never asked questions. She never made me talk about it. She just helped. And I was grateful for that. When we were done, the house felt different, lighter. Like I had removed a weight I did not even know I was carrying. But there were still reminders everywhere. The porch railing Gregory fixed. The kitchen table we bought together. The pictures on the wall from our wedding. I took those down. I could not look at them anymore. Could not look at his face smiling next to mine, knowing what I knew now. I thought about selling the house, starting over somewhere new, somewhere without memories. But this house was mine long before it was ours. This was where I raised Noah, where I lived with David, where I built my life, and I was not going to let Gregory take that from me too. So I stayed, and slowly I made it mine again. In April, I got a letter. It was from one of the boys, Kyle, the first one who called Noah. He said he wanted to thank me. He said because of me, because of Noah, he finally felt safe. He said he was doing better, going to therapy, talking to his family, healing. He said he did not know if he would ever be the same, but he knew he was going to be okay, and that was because someone believed him. Someone fought for him. Someone made sure Gregory could not hurt anyone else. I cried reading that letter. Not sad tears, grateful tears, because I realized that all of this, all the pain and fear and ugliness, had meant something. It had mattered. It had saved children, and that was worth everything. I keep thinking about that letter, about that boy, about all the boys, and I need to tell you something. If you are listening to this and you have ever felt like your voice does not matter, like speaking up will not change anything, you are wrong. One voice can change everything. One person believing can save a life. If this story means something to you, leave a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because every single day there is a new story here. Stories about courage, about truth, about protecting the people we love. Now let me finish telling you what happened. May brought something I did not expect. An apology. The pastor from my old church called me. He asked if he could come over. I almost said no. But something told me to let him come. So I did. He sat in my living room, the same living room where I had confronted Gregory, and he said, "Linda, I owe you an apology, a real one." I did not say anything. I just waited. He said, "When you came to me, when you told me what you found, I did not believe you. I thought you were mistaken, or angry, or confused. I chose to protect the church instead of protecting children. And I was wrong. Deeply wrong." He said since the trial ended, 3 more families had come forward, 3 more boys who had been abused by Gregory, boys who had been too afraid to speak up during the trial, boys who saw the verdict and finally felt safe enough to tell the truth. He said the church was working with authorities now, making sure every child was accounted for, every family contacted, every stone turned over. He said, "I should have done this when you first told me. I should have believed you. I should have acted, and I am sorry. More sorry than I can say." I looked at him, this man who had known me for 30 years, who had dismissed me, who had chosen reputation over reality, and I said, "I forgive you, but forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean what you did was okay. It means I am choosing not to carry anger toward you anymore, but I will never come back to that church." He nodded. He said, "I understand, and I do not blame you." He left after that, and I sat there thinking about forgiveness, about what it means, about what it costs. I had spent so much energy being angry, at Gregory, at the church, at everyone who did not believe me, and I realized I did not want to carry that anymore. It was too heavy. It was taking up space I needed for healing. So I started letting it go, not all at once, but little by little, day by day. June came, and with it Noah's birthday. He turned 27. I made him his favorite dinner, pot roast, mashed potatoes, the same meal I made him every birthday since he was a kid. We sat at the kitchen table and we talked, really talked, not about Gregory, not about the trial, just about life, about his job, about his girlfriend, about the future. He said, "Mom, I have been thinking about something." I said, "What is that?" He said, "I want to do more. I want to help other kids who have been through what I went through, what those boys went through. I have been looking into organizations, support groups, ways to volunteer." I said, "That is a beautiful thing, Noah." He said, "I feel like if I do not use this, if I do not turn it into something good, then Gregory still wins. He still controls the narrative. But if I can help even one kid feel less alone, then it means something." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I said, "You are going to change lives. I know it." And he did. Over the next few months, Noah started volunteering with a nonprofit that worked with child abuse survivors. He led support groups, he talked to kids, he listened, and he made a difference. Watching him do that work, watching him take his pain and turn it into purpose, made me prouder than anything else he had ever done. In August, I finally went to therapy. I called a counselor, made an appointment, sat in her office and told her everything. She asked me what I wanted from therapy. I said, I want to stop feeling guilty. I want to stop replaying everything in my mind. I want to feel like myself again. She said, healing is not about going back to who you were. It is about becoming who you are now, after everything you have been through. You are not the same person you were a year ago, and that is okay. That hit me hard, because I had been trying so hard to get back to normal, back to the life I had before. But that life did not exist anymore. That version of me did not exist anymore, and I needed to accept that. So I started doing the work, the real work. I talked about my feelings, my fears, my anger, my shame. I cried, I raged, I grieved, not just for what Gregory did, but for the life I thought I had, the marriage I thought was real, the future I thought we would have. It was hard, harder than anything I had ever done. But slowly, session by session, I started to feel lighter, started to feel like maybe I was going to be okay after all. September brought another letter, this one from Gregory. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it. It was 2 pages, handwritten, and it was the most pathetic thing I had ever read. He said he was sorry. He said he never meant to hurt anyone. He said he had a problem, an addiction. He said he needed help. He said if he could go back and change things, he would. He said he still loved me. He said he missed me. He said he hoped one day I could forgive him. I read it twice, and then I tore it into pieces. I threw it in the trash, and I never responded. Because that letter was not an apology. It was manipulation. One last attempt to make himself the victim, to make me feel sorry for him, to control the narrative even from prison. But I was done being manipulated, done being controlled, done letting Gregory Hale have any power over my life. I told my therapist about the letter. She asked how I felt reading it. I said, I felt nothing, and that is how I knew I was healing. October marked 1 year since the phone call. 1 year since Noah called me crying. 1 year since I looked under the bed and found the truth. Noah and I went out to dinner. We did not talk about the anniversary. We did not need to. We just spent time together, laughed, told stories, enjoyed each other's company. At the end of the night, he said, Mom, thank you. I said, for what? He said, for believing me, for fighting for me, for not giving up. I said, you never have to thank me for that. That is what mothers do. He smiled, and I saw something in his eyes I had not seen in a long time. Peace. In November, I did something I had been thinking about for months. I went back to the courthouse. Not for a trial, not for a hearing, just to see Angela Mendez. She was surprised to see me. She asked if everything was okay. I said, everything is fine. I just wanted to say thank you for fighting for those boys, for believing them, for making sure Gregory paid for what he did. She said, Mrs. Carver, you are the one who made this case possible. You are the one who came forward. You are the one who stood up when it would have been easier to look away. I said, I just did what was right. She said, most people do not. Most people choose comfort over truth. You chose truth. And because of that, children are safe. We talked for an hour about the case, about the boys, about where they were now. She said most of them were doing well, healing, moving forward. She said one of them, Kyle, had started a blog, writing about his experience, helping other survivors. She said he was turning his pain into advocacy. I thought about Noah doing the same thing, about how these boys, these brave, strong boys, were not letting what happened define them. They were taking their power back. And I thought, that is what courage looks like. December came, the holidays, the first holidays without Gregory. I thought they would be hard, lonely, sad, but they were not. They were peaceful. I spent Christmas with Noah and his girlfriend, Emily. We cooked together, watched movies, played games. It was simple, quiet, perfect. On Christmas night, Noah gave me a gift. It was a framed photograph, a picture of the two of us from when he was little. Maybe 5 or 6 years old. We were at the park. He was on my shoulders. We were both laughing. He said, "I found this in a box at my apartment, and I wanted you to have it, because no matter what happened with Gregory, no matter what we went through, this is what is real. This is what matters. You and me." I cried, happy tears this time, because he was right. That was what mattered. That was what was real. And Gregory could not take that from us. It has been 3 years now since that phone call. 3 years since I looked under the bed and my world fell apart. 3 years since I learned that the man I trusted was a monster, and 3 years since I chose my son over everything else. People ask me sometimes how I am doing, if I am okay, if I have moved on. And the truth is, I am doing better than I ever thought I would be. But I am not the same person I was before. I will never be that person again. And I have learned that is okay. That is more than okay. That is growth. Noah is thriving now. He got engaged to Emily last spring. They are getting married next June, and I am going to be standing right there watching my son marry a woman who loves him and supports him and believes him. A woman who knows everything he went through and loves him anyway. A woman who sees his strength and his courage and his heart. He is still teaching 7th grade English, still volunteering with that nonprofit. He told me last month that he is thinking about writing a book about his experience, about what it is like to know something terrible and be afraid to speak, about what it is like to finally find your voice, about what it is like to be believed. I told him I think that is a wonderful idea. I told him his story could help so many people, so many children who are afraid, so many adults who do not know if they should speak up, so many families who are struggling with the truth. He said, "I could not have done any of this without you, Mom. Without you believing me, without you acting, without you showing me what courage looks like." I said, "You showed me what courage looks like, Noah. You were the brave one. You were the one who spoke up when you were terrified. You were the one who kept going even when it felt impossible. I am just your mother. I did what any mother should do." But he shook his head. He said, "Not every mother does that. Not every mother chooses to see. Not every mother chooses to act. You did. And that saved my life. It saved those boys' lives. Do not ever forget that." I think about that conversation a lot, about what he said, about how many mothers, how many fathers, how many grandparents choose not to see, choose to look away, choose comfort over truth, choose reputation over protection. And I understand why. I understand how hard it is. How terrifying, how much easier it is to tell yourself you are imagining things, to tell yourself it could not possibly be true, to tell yourself that speaking up will only make things worse. But I also know what happens when we choose silence, when we choose to protect the wrong people, when we choose our own comfort over a child's safety. Children suffer. Children stay trapped. Children lose their childhoods. And sometimes, children lose their lives. So I want to stop here for a moment and talk directly to you, to whoever is listening to this, to whoever needs to hear this message. If you are a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, a coach, a neighbor, anyone who has children in your life, I need you to hear me. Trust your instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If a child's behavior changes, pay attention. If they start having nightmares, wetting the bed, withdrawing from activities they used to love, refusing to be around certain people, acting out in ways that are not normal for them, do not dismiss it. Do not tell yourself it is just a phase. Do not tell yourself you are overreacting. Ask questions. Listen. Believe. And if you find out something terrible, something you do not want to believe, something that shatters your world, do not look away. Do not protect the abuser. Do not worry about what people will think. Do not worry about your reputation. Do not worry about keeping the peace. Protect the child. Always protect the child. That is your job. That is your duty. That is what love looks like. I know it is hard. I know it is terrifying. I know it will cost you things. It cost me my marriage. It cost me friendships. It cost me my church community. It cost me my sense of safety, but it saved children. And that is worth everything. The house feels like mine now, completely mine. I redecorated the living room last year. New couch, new curtains, new paint on the walls. I planted a garden in the backyard. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, things I can nurture and watch grow, things that bring life instead of death. I am still going to therapy. Not as often as I used to, once a month now instead of once a week. But I still go, because I know healing is not a destination. It is a journey, and some wounds need tending for a long time. My therapist asked me recently if I have forgiven Gregory. I thought about it for a while. Then I said, I do not think about him enough anymore to forgive him or not forgive him. He does not occupy space in my mind the way he used to. He is just a man in prison who did terrible things and is paying for them. What he did was unforgivable. But I am not carrying anger about it anymore. I am just carrying peace. She said that is a beautiful place to be. And I think she is right. I reconnected with some old friends this year. People I lost when everything happened. People who did not believe me at first, but came around eventually. Some of them apologized. Some of them did not. I chose to let the ones back in who showed genuine remorse. The ones who said, I was wrong and I am sorry and I should have believed you. The ones who did not, I let go. And I do not regret it. Ruth is still my closest friend. She brings me soup when I am sick. She comes over for coffee every Wednesday morning. She sits with me when I need company and leaves me alone when I need space. She never once doubted me, never once questioned me, never once made me feel like I was crazy. I do not know what I would have done without her. I joined a support group for families affected by child abuse. Not as a participant, although I could be, but as a facilitator. I help run meetings. I listen to parents and grandparents who are going through what I went through, who are struggling to accept the truth, who are trying to navigate the legal system, who are trying to hold their families together while everything falls apart. I tell them what I learned. I tell them they are not alone. I tell them it gets better, not easier, but better. I tell them the first step is always the hardest, but every step after that is movement toward healing. I tell them to trust themselves, to trust their children, to trust the process even when it feels impossible. And I watch them find their strength. Watch them stand up. Watch them fight. Watch them protect. And it reminds me why I speak up, why I keep telling my story, why I keep showing up. Because silence protects abusers, and speaking up protects children. It is that simple. Last month, I got another letter. This one was not from Gregory. It was from Kyle, the boy who called Noah 3 years ago, the boy who was the first to come forward publicly during the trial. He is 17 now, a senior in high school, and he wrote to tell me he got accepted to college, full scholarship. He is going to study psychology. He wants to work with trauma survivors. He wants to be a therapist. He said, Mrs. Carver, I want you to know that because of you, I am still here. There were times after everything happened that I did not think I could keep going. Times I thought the pain was too much. Times I thought maybe it would be easier to just give up. But then I would think about you, about how you fought for us, about how you believed us, about how you did not give up even when it was hard. And I would think, if she can be that strong, so can I. He said he is doing well now. He has good days and bad days, but more good than bad. He has friends, he has hope, he has a future, and he wanted me to know that I gave him that my courage gave him courage. I cried reading that letter. Not sad tears, grateful tears, overwhelmed tears. Because I realized that the worst moment of my life, the moment I found those pictures under the bed, led to this. Led to a boy finding hope. Led to a boy choosing life. Led to a boy becoming a man who is going to help others. And that is everything. I still have the bin, the one I found under the bed. The police returned it to me after the trial ended. Evidence no longer needed. I thought about throwing it away, burning it, destroying it. But I kept it. Not because I want to remember Gregory, but because I want to remember what speaking up looks like, what protecting children looks like, what courage looks like. I keep it in the back of my closet. I do not look at it. I do not open it. But I know it is there. A reminder that evil exists and that good people have to fight it every single day, in big ways and small ways, by paying attention, by asking questions, by believing children, by refusing to look away. Noah and Emily came over for dinner last weekend. We sat on the porch after we ate. The sun was setting. The air was warm. It was one of those perfect evenings where everything feels right. Emily said, "Linda, I have a question for you, and you can say no if you want. But when Noah and I get married, when we have children someday, would you want to be involved? Would you want to be their grandmother?" I looked at her. This beautiful young woman who loves my son, who sees his scars and loves him anyway, who wants to build a life with him. And I said, I would be honored. She smiled. Then she said, "Good. Because those kids are going to need someone like you in their lives. Someone who pays attention, someone who protects, someone who loves fiercely." And I thought, yes, that is exactly who I want to be. Not just for my future grandchildren, but for every child I encounter, every child who crosses my path. I want to be the person who sees, who listens, who believes, who acts. Because that is what the world needs. People who refuse to look away. People who choose truth over comfort. People who protect the vulnerable even when it costs them something. I am 77 years old now. I do not know how many years I have left, but I know how I want to spend them. I want to spend them speaking up, helping others find their voices, supporting survivors, educating communities, making sure what happened to those boys, what happened to my son, does not happen to others. I want to spend them loving my son, welcoming my daughter-in-law, meeting my grandchildren someday, building a family that is safe, honest, open, a family where children know they can speak up, where they know they will be believed, where they know they are protected. I want to spend them being myself, fully, completely, without shame, without guilt, without the weight of secrets, just me, Linda Carver, a woman who survived, who fought, who won. People sometimes ask me if I regret marrying Gregory, if I wish I had never met him, if I wish I could go back and change everything, and the answer is complicated. Of course I wish he had never hurt those children. Of course I wish my son had never had to carry that burden. Of course I wish I had never had to go through the pain of discovering the truth. But I do not regret what came after. I do not regret finding my strength. I do not regret learning who I really am. I do not regret the relationships that were forged in fire. I do not regret becoming the woman I am today, stronger, fiercer, more certain of what matters. So no, I do not spend time wishing for a different past. I spend time building a better future. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Whatever you are facing, whatever truth you are avoiding, whatever hard thing you need to do it. Speak up, act, protect, fight. You are stronger than you think, braver than you know, and your voice matters more than you realize. One voice can change everything. One person choosing to see can save a life. One act of courage can ripple out in ways you cannot imagine. I know, because I lived it, because I watched it happen, because I see the evidence every single day in the lives of those boys who are now young men, in the life of my son who is now whole, in my own life that is now free. Before I finish, I want to say something to the survivors out there, to the children who were hurt, to the adults who are still carrying the pain of what happened to them years ago, to anyone who has ever been told to stay quiet, to anyone who has ever been made to feel like it was their fault, to anyone who has ever been afraid to speak. You are believed. What happened to you was not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You deserve to be protected, and you were not, and that is on the adults who failed you. Not on you, never on you. And it is not too late. It is not too late to speak, not too late to heal, not too late to take your power back. You are stronger than what happened to you. You are more than your trauma. You are worthy of love and safety and peace. And to the people who love survivors, who are walking beside them, who are trying to help, keep going. Keep believing, keep fighting. Your support matters, your presence matters, your refusal to look away matters. You are doing sacred work. Do not give up. If you stayed with me through all of this, if you listened to this entire story, I want you to know you have given an old woman a gift. The gift of being heard. The gift of knowing this story mattered. The gift of hope that maybe someone needed to hear it. Now I want to ask you one last thing. If you really listened, if you really stayed with me through all of this, leave me a comment with the word guardian. Only those who truly heard me will understand why that word matters. That is what I became. That is what we all need to be. Guardians, protectors, people who stand between children and harm, people who refuse to look away. And please subscribe if you have not already. There is a new story here every single day. Stories about courage, stories about truth, stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And maybe tomorrow's story will be yours. Or maybe it will be the one that helps someone you love. Maybe it will be the one that gives someone the courage to speak up, to act, to protect. Where are you watching from? What city? What state? What country? What time is it there? Are you alone or is someone with you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know that this story reached you, that it mattered, that it made a difference. From this old grandmother's heart to yours, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being the kind of person who pays attention, who asks questions, who believes children, who refuses to choose comfort over truth. The world needs more people like you, more people who see, more people who act, more people who protect. Be that person, be the guardian, be the voice, be the light in someone's darkness. Take care of each other out there. Pay attention to the children in your lives. Ask them how they are really doing. Listen when they tell you something feels wrong. Believe them, protect them, fight for them. That is the most important work any of us will ever do. 3 years ago, I got a phone call that changed my life. My son was crying, he was scared, he was breaking, and he asked me to choose him, to choose truth, to choose courage over comfort, and I did. I chose him, and I would make that choice again every single day for the rest of my life. Because that is what love looks like. Not comfort, not ease, not pretending everything is fine when it is not. Love looks like seeing, like listening, like believing, like acting, like protecting, like fighting, like refusing to give up even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. That is the lesson. That is what I want you to take from this story. Love is a verb. Love is action. Love is choosing truth even when it costs you everything. Love is standing between harm and the people you care about and saying, "Not on my watch, never on my watch." I am Linda Carver. I am 77 years old. I live in Boise, Idaho, and I am a guardian, a protector, a fighter, a believer, a mother, a survivor. And I am still here, still standing, still speaking, still refusing to look away, and I always will be. May you find your courage, may you find your voice, may you find your strength, and may you use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is my prayer for you. That is my hope for all of us. That we become a world of guardians, a world of protectors, a world where children are safe because adults choose to see, choose to act, choose to fight. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Thank you for hearing my story. Thank you for being here. I will see you tomorrow with another story, another truth, another reminder that courage changes everything. Until then, take care, pay attention, and never stop being a guardian.